Well, hello everybody, and welcome to another tips and tricks video. Today I want to talk about advanced item loaders. I did a video before that showed a simple loader, but a couple of you pointed out an issue with it if you have a large farm or something where you have a lot of items. So the item loader that I built in that video basically looked like this. It's a really simple, really effective design where basically you throw some items in a chest up here, the hopper loads them into a minecart, and then it automatically sends the minecart off. And basically what's happening here is there's a comparator that is watching the hopper, and if there are items in here, it will send a signal into this block, which inverts the torch, kills this signal, unpowers the rail. So the minecart just sits here. And then once the hopper is empty, the comparator turns off, which allows the torch to turn back on, repowers this circuit, repowers the powered rail, and sends the minecart on its way. Show you how it works real quick here. If I give this a little power here, this guy's going to come along, sent back and forth. And if we put some items in here, you can see it's been detected, which sends the signal in here, kills the torch, kills this, and this guy will just sit here and load up those items. As you can see, they are trickling in. Once the items are out of the hopper, it will send the minecart on its way. Just like that. Now you might be asking yourself, what's the problem with that? Well, the problem is that this circuit relies on this hopper being empty. And if you have a farm that is producing a tremendous amount of items, it is possible that the hopper will never empty. As an example, let's say in my minecart, I just have one space left here, okay? And then over here, we've got a full hopper and then more items up here. So when we send our minecart along here, going to come along and start loading up. Now, when this gets full, there's still going to be stuff in the hopper. So you can see here, we're totally full, but there's still a whole bunch of stuff in the hopper. So that means this comparator is never going to turn off, which means this circuit's never going to get activated, and the minecart is just going to sit here. And that's exactly what happens if you have like a sugarcane farm or a mob farm where you're just getting a tremendous number of drops. They're just going to keep rolling in, and that hopper is never going to empty. So this sort of loader is great if you're manually loading it or if it's just a few items. But if you have a tremendous amount of items from a farm, there are some other solutions we can look at. So this design has been around for a while, I think since 1.6 or 1.7, and it's a really clever little loader. There's a couple of things going on here. When the minecart comes along, it hits this little incline, and there is a comparator here. Just like before, it is checking to see, is there anything in this hopper? And if there is, it's going to send a signal into this block, which powers this sticky piston, causing it to extend this fence. And because of the way hitboxes work, this fence holds the minecart in place. So it's kind of stuck there. Now the other thing that's going on is there is this detector rail. And so the detector rail can determine how much stuff is in the minecart. So it is sending a signal into a comparator. The comparator pushes it into another comparator. That pushes it into this block, which then pushes it into this comparator. And you can see there's a lever back here sending a full 15 signal into the side of this comparator. The way comparators work is it compares the signal coming in the back to the signal coming in the side. If the signal in the side is stronger, it cuts the comparator off. But if this signal is greater or equal to this, the signal will pass through. So when we have a full minecart, this signal will be strong enough for it to pass through. When this block gets powered, it turns the torch off, which retracts this block here. And that breaks this circuit here. So it basically says, hey, even if there's stuff in the hopper, just let the minecart go because it's full. Sounds like a lot, but it's a really simple and pretty elegant design. So let me go ahead and show you this thing in action. So we're going to come over here and we're going to just put a few items in here. And you'll see that now that they're flowing into the hopper, the comparator detected that, powered this block, which extended the fence. So if we send our minecart along, it's going to get stuck. And those items are going to filter through until the hopper is empty. And as soon as the hopper is empty, it's going to release the minecart. and off it goes. Now let's say we've got a lot of stuff, like we've got a farm that's just putting a ton of items in here. And let's say our minecart is almost full. What's going to happen is it's going to go along, get stuck, and start loading up. And as soon as the minecart is full, it's going to get released. So you can see the fullness triggered this and retracted the block, and you can see it keeps happening over and over. The detector rail says there's too much stuff in here, don't hold this minecart in place. So like I said, a really clever design that's really, really useful. So to build this one, you just want to come out, let's say your line is going to end here, and you want to come up one like that, and right at the end, you want to have a powered rail. Right next to the powered rail, you want to have a detector rail. And then what you're going to do is just place any old rail up top, and that's going to get this one to angle up, just like that. You can then go ahead and break this and put another block on top. To help it along, I recommend one away from the detector rail, put a powered rail, and go ahead and power it in some way. You can use a lever or a redstone block, whatever you want. That way, when this is released, it'll hit a powered rail and get some momentum. Now there's two comparator signals we're taking. One we're taking from the detector rail, and the other one we're taking off the hopper. So you're just going to put one next to the detector rail, and then one higher up, and you're going to put a comparator on each of these. This comparator is just going to go into a block, and this block is going to power our first sticky piston. So you just want to place that right on the side, and you're going to put a fence right on that sticky piston, just like that. Now the detector rail is sending a signal into this comparator, and it is going to go into another comparator right next to it, which is then going to go into a block, which is then going to go into some dust. This block here, which is temporary, we don't really need that one. So we have two comparators going into a block, the block goes into dust, and then one more comparator right out here. Now this comparator is going to have two blocks next to it. One of them is just going to have a lever. We're going to flip it on, put some dust going into the side of this comparator. Temporary block, block up here. So when the minecart is full, this signal will go in here. It'll be equal to this one. It'll power this block, and we're going to put a torch right on top. Now this block right here, I recommend doing a couple of temporary blocks. We're going to go 1, 2, 3, break those two. We're going to use this temporary block, put a sticky piston. Should be right next to the torch, and it should extend. We can go ahead and break this temporary block as well. Your hopper line is going to go right into this rail here. So if you look down at it and place your hopper, that is actually enough room for the minecart to load up. The only other tip is I don't recommend stacking hoppers like this. Sometimes the items will move a little quickly for the comparator to register them. Instead, you can have one above your rail, come out one, and then place your hoppers. This little jog will slow the items down just a little bit so that the comparator can get an accurate read. I find it just saves a lot of trouble and keeps things working a little smoother. So this next design is one I came up with that works in a little bit of a different way. It takes advantage of the speed of hopper minecarts. Now hopper minecarts load much, much faster than minecarts with chests, but they only have 5 slots, so they can't carry nearly as many items. So you're kind of trading off the speed at which you're getting the items for how many items you're getting at once. Now the way that this one works is the hopper minecart is going to come along and it's going to park right here. Now this hopper holds exactly the same number of items as a hopper minecart, and you'll notice back here that this hopper is being powered. So when this starts draining, it's not going to get refilled because this one is locked. So it will drain completely. And when this hopper is empty, the comparator will sense that, stop powering this block, torch kicks back on, and this will power the rail, sending the minecart on its way. Now, the other thing that happens is when this hopper is empty and it stops powering this comparator, that also stops powering this piston. So this will retract, and this hopper will start replenishing this hopper. Now over here, this comparator is watching the hopper as well. And when it becomes empty, this comparator stops powering this block, allowing this torch to turn back on. And this is coming into the side of both of these. And so this signal will be stronger than what is coming out of the hopper. And that allows it to refill completely. So if this torch wasn't here, as soon as an item popped into this hopper, these guys would power back on. But this torch going into the side assures that they won't send out a signal until this is completely full. So let me go ahead and show you how this one works. We're going to go ahead and send this guy off here, and you'll notice that it fills up really, really quickly. And this is emptying at exactly the same rate. So eventually this will be empty, and as soon as it is, it'll send the minecart on its way. And then it starts to refill. Now, like I was saying, this torch kicked on, and it is going into the side of these two comparators. So this signal is stronger than what they are reading in the hopper. And when the hopper is full, that's when these two will kick on. Turn this torch back off, and it will relock the hopper so it's ready to go for the next minecart. So like I said, it's a little bit of a trade-off. You get items much, much more quickly, but you don't get nearly as many items each trip. So the way you're going to build this one is back here at the very end, you're going to put your powered rail, and we're going to basically build the simple circuit. So we're going to have a place for our minecart to stop. We're going to put a comparator facing away from it. That comparator is going to run into a block. On the back of the block, we're going to put a torch. We're going to come out 2. 1, 2. Break that. We're going to put a repeater facing into this block here, and then some dust. Basically, we have created our simple loading system. Now, off of this block here, we are going to come out 1, and then on top of this is where we're going to put our sticky piston. Break that, and then we are going to use a repeater facing into the sticky piston. On the sticky piston, we're going to put a redstone block, and we're going to do 1 tick of delay on this repeater. Now, this design does require at least 2 hoppers. One that's going to go directly into our powered rail, and then you need to do 1 into the side of this hopper, and that is the hopper that's going to get locked by the redstone block. It's also important to note that this is where you're going to feed your items, whether it is a hopper line or a chest or whatever. Don't put them directly in here. You need them in here so that they can be locked. Lastly, we need to come over here. We're going to go 2 blocks this way. We're going to do a block here, temporary block, and then 1 block up. Now, out of here, we're going to do 1 dust. We're going to do a comparator that's also reading the hopper like that. And then we need to put a torch on the side here that's powering that dust. And lastly, I recommend counting about 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, doing a powered rail and giving it power with a torch or a lever. And that way, it'll have a little help getting out of the station here. And that's basically it. So this last design is one I came up with that takes advantage of the boat and chest mechanic. This can sit on top of 4 hoppers and output items into each of them. Now, in my experimenting, I noticed that it filled up one of the hoppers, and then it would fill up the next hopper, and then fill up the next hopper. It doesn't do them equally simultaneously. It will make sure one's full before going to the next, but it does fill them all up eventually. What's going on here is you have a minecart that comes along, and it starts going around this little loop. And each of these hoppers is facing down, and so the chest and minecart just start picking up the items. And it'll go around and around until this detector rail determines that the minecart is full. And just like before, we have a full signal going into the side of this comparator, so it doesn't output anything unless it gets a full minecart. Then it sends a signal right down here, which switches this rail, and allows the minecart to go on its way. I'll show you what it looks like real quick here. Let's send this guy out. It'll start going around and around, and you'll notice that it starts picking up the items pretty quickly. Once it is detected that it's full, this rail is going to change. Send it on its way. Right now I only have one input going into this boat with chest, but you can actually have 2 on each side of the boat. So you could have 8 hopper lines going into this circuit. Also, you could extend this, so you could have another 4 here with another boat, another 4 here with another boat. So this is really versatile and really flexible. So to build this one, you're going to come off your rail 5 blocks. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and you're going to make it 2 wide. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. This last rail here, you want to make a powered rail, and you want to power it with a torch or a lever, whatever you prefer. And then this is where the loop is going to be. And so this can be a little tricky. If you start doing this, like you can see they start to connect in weird ways. And so what I recommend doing is just come down one side first, then come down the other side, and they'll want to connect. If they don't, just keep kind of breaking them until they do. Now the third one, 1, 2, 3, this is going to be a detector rail, and over here the second one is going to be a powered rail. And again, power that with a lever, torch, whatever you prefer. Now your hoppers are going to be above these 4 rails here. So here, 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 here. If you put a hopper above a detector rail, when the detector rail gets power, it often will lock the hopper. So you don't want the detector rail to be under the hopper. So the next thing I recommend doing is place down a temporary block. And then what you're going to do is put your input line into the side of that. And then place your boat with chest on top of that temporary block and break that block. Then it'll just kind of plop on top. As long as your hitbox is covering all 4, it doesn't matter if it's perfectly centered or anything. But that temporary block makes it so much simpler than trying to shift click and get these things to line up. Lastly, you're going to come off the side of the detector rail and you're going to put a comparator facing away from it on that. Next to the comparator, you're going to come out 2. You're going to put a lever with some power and connect it to the comparator with some dust. You're then going to come out the front of the comparator down over so that it lines up with the curved rail. You're going to put a repeater into that block with all the delay on it, and then dust to connect them. The delay makes it so that when the minecart hits this, it has enough time to get around before it unswitches. And that's basically it. And so there we have 4 different systems. One that is very simple, if you just have a few items or you're manually loading it. One that is a little bit more complicated, but a really, really smart design. One that is a little bit faster, but doesn't move as many items. And one that is very simple and takes advantage of some new mechanics in 1.19. Well, I hope you all found this useful and helpful. Leave me a comment. Let me know which one you like best, which one you're going to use in your world. I thank you all so much for watching. I hope you had fun. Please like and subscribe if you want to follow along on the adventure, and I hope to see you all in the next one. Bye-bye.